Hi everyone, welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today on our show we have Alma Beals. Alma is a naturalist, she's a master gardener, she's an environmentalist. She is all of these things and more, and she's also really a lifelong learner. As she says, she spent her life picking up knowledge, and she's used it to so many good purposes. Also has done a lot in revving up groups of people to join with her in her many enthusiasms. So Alma also is happiest when she's outside. So keeping that in mind, welcome Alma.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. We're glad to have you coming inside on such a beautiful day.
Yeah.
I know that's not easy for you.
No, it's not.
I'm glad you're so honest. I think we'll be hearing a lot of honesty from you this morning. You grew up in Florida, but Florida, Massachusetts.
Right.
So what was that like?
Well, actually, it was nice. It's way up on top of a mountain. It's the highest spot of the Mohawk Trail.
Wow.
And the spring, summer, and fall were just gorgeous, and the winters were just brutal.
Got a lot of snow?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the Mohawk Trail. So that's on if you're going to North Adams.
Right.
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 Yeah. And you grew up on a family farm.
Yep. Yep. And I had two brothers that had asthma quite badly, so I was the one that helped my father all the time on the farm.
Oh, really?
And being an outdoor person, I had to be outside.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good thing you liked it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so you were somewhat of a tomboy?
I'm a tomboy. Yep.
Yeah, you
I
are
still,
a tomboy.
I still am.
Present tense tomboy, that's great. So you spent a lot of time observing nature, whether you knew it or not, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time, you know, like if I'm out driving the tractor or riding the rake or whatever, you know, I could be observing, and I would see these various birds, and I would think, okay, at the end of the day, I'm going to check the book and see what I'm seeing, and of course, I could hear all these different things, and I could match the voice with the bird.
You could, yeah, at an early age.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So you were doing more than observing. You were actually going back and doing research.
Yeah, right. I think maybe that was the start of my research.
Yeah. Something else which you've carried through your life.
Yep.
Yeah. If you want to know about something, you pretty much find out, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much your whole childhood, right?
Yeah, it
Being on the
was,
farm,
yeah.
working the farm, and
Yeah.
but you went to school,
Oh, yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
And you went all through high school and did quite well.
Yeah, I had to go down to North Adams because all of us kids from the you know, the area kids, we all had to go down to North Adams. So we never really quite belonged. We kind of hung around as the mountain kids.
The mountain kids, the Massachusetts mountain kids.
Yeah.
You had your own posse.
We didn't go quite that far.
So early 50s, you ended up in Vermont. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, right after I got out of high school, I was working for a Sears Roebuck store in North Adams, and it was mail order, and they had a problem with the Springfield, Vermont office, and they said, do you want to go and see if you can kind of straighten things out? And I said, well, I have no idea where that is, but sure, why not? So that's how I came up to Vermont.
And you've been here ever since?
Been here ever since.
Yeah, and it feels like home?
Vermont is home.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you felt that right away?
Yes, right away.
You were a single mom.
Yep.
You had a job. You were inside a lot.
Yep.
It must have been a little hard for you doing that.
That just killed me, having to stay inside, because I was always into accounting, and of course you can't do that outdoors. So it would just kill me to have to stay inside and watch a beautiful day go by, and I've missed it.
Yeah. And were you gardening at that point?
Yeah.
And so you still had contact with the outside world.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And birding and all of that.
All that.
Yeah. And so at some point your kids get a little bit older, and what did you get interested in at that point?
Okay, of course I was interested in the environment, and I took college courses all through high school, but you know, back in those days they didn't have all these programs where poor kids could go to school.
Right.
So I couldn't go to college at that point. But off and on during the, you know, as I'm raising my kids, I would take a course here and there in community college, and did what they called environmental studies. So that covered quite a lot of that area.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I got the degree in, was environmental studies.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what you were really interested in.
Yeah.
Doing it like that, the way you did school, it really got you to go your own way and follow some of your deepest interests.
Yeah, and in community college let me do that. You know, some colleges you have to stick pretty well to the curriculum, but they let me figure out a lot of what I wanted.
Yeah, and that was CCV?
CCV, yeah.
That's good to know. One thing that I didn't mention in the intro, because it would have taken too long, is the number of organizations that Alma is involved in, which are many. They're almost all environmental, but let's talk about some of them. One of the earliest ones was the Scuttney Mountain Audubon.
Yeah, I've been in that since way back in the 70s, and that was when the group, the chapter started. And I don't know as I did too much of actually starting it, but I was there when, when it started. And I've been in it ever since.
Okay, and so Audubon, is it all birds?
No,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, can you enlighten us, or at least me, a little
Well,
bit on it?
it's the basis is birds, but it actually is everything connected with nature is what it is.
And you've been involved with them since the 70s?
It's in
You're
the
still
70s,
involved.
yeah.
What interests you most about that organization?
Well, I've been president of it 3 different times, so obviously I must have liked it
Yeah.
to do that.
Or at least people are doing what you told them to do, right?
Yeah, and right now I'm secretary. I think what I like most about it is, of course, the birding, and the aspect of birding. I'd quite often take groups of kids out and teach them a little birding. We had binoculars that belonged to Audubon, and so we'd show the kids how to use them, how to take care of them, and they can't really see with binoculars until they're like maybe toward the 3rd grade. So I think it was that working with the group, the kids, that I liked most. Yeah.
And I would imagine lighting a fire under them as well, right? Getting
Yeah,
interested.
yeah. When you'd see them all of a sudden get the whole thing, it would be so exciting.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I'm sure it's not limited to kids either. The excitement that you get from experiencing that.
No, it can
too.
be adults too.
Yeah. When something clicks.
Yeah, something
right,
clicks, right.
At some point, you got involved in the Putney Mountain Hawk Watch, which is kind of it's a local notable thing in this area. People know about it. They know that you go up there and count hawks, but I think people who haven't done it or talked to someone don't quite grasp what that's about.
Yeah, I think people don't quite figure out, like they know that we're up there when it's terribly, terribly cold. And of course that mountain is always colder than down off the mountain, and you got the wind blowing. And we started at Marshall Wheelock of Brattleboro, and my late husband Waldo and myself. The 3 of us, we attended a class, and I think it was a community college class, and it was on hawks. And one of our field trips was up to Putney Mountain. And the 3 of us said, hey, this is pretty neat. So we started the Hawk Watch. Up till that time, people would occasionally come up and count hawks, but it wasn't a regular place like it is now.
Right.
And now it's the Hawk Watch of Vermont.
It is.
Yep.
And does that have to do with the height of the mountain?
Yeah, it has to do with the way the wind comes across the mountain. It has a good way where the northwest wind can come through, and so it's more the mountain, the shape of it.
I don't know if you still do this, but I remember in Putney, I think it was out in front of the tavern building, and every day there was, you had posted on a post in the ground how many hawks were seen, and so it was a running total. Is that right?
Yeah,
do you
that's
still
right.
do it?
They don't do it like they used to, because at that time we had Jim Mullen as the town manager of Putney, and he was right into it, and he would check with us at the end of the day, okay, how many hawks you got, and then he'd put the sign up.
That's so great. It was such a cool thing.
It was,
Yeah. A lot of people didn't even really quite get what it was, but we knew that something was happening. Yeah. And it's not, the thing about Putney Mountain is not that hard a mountain to climb up.
No, it's something like maybe 6/10 of a mile one way.
Yeah. But you get an amazing panorama.
Yeah.
Up there too.
Yeah.
And it's still going strong.
It's still going strong.
And
We
you're
have
still going up.
still going up.
What year is this for you?
Let's see, that was back in the early 80s, I want to say. So it's been a lot of years.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is. Yeah.
On this show, we always let the audience do the math. It's
Okay.
a very important point. We don't have to do that. I just wonder if you could capture for us what it's like to be on top of Putney Mountain and have those hawks soaring.
Oh, it's absolutely unbelievable. And the day that I got hooked, I had come to the bottom of the mountain, and my late husband was with me, and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I looked up overhead, and the hawks were just shooting through. So he stayed down at the bottom to watch, and I ran up to the top of the mountain, and that was the day I was hooked.
Yeah. They were pulling you.
Yes.
You up the
Oh,
mountain.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you count them?
Uh,
That's the ultimate question, right?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
The question we usually get is, how do you know they're migrating? That's usually the question. And what we say is, if they come from the north and they head south and they're flying with a purpose, we figure that they're migrating.
They've got a place to go.
Yeah.
And then how do you count them?
Usually they're coming slow enough so you can, there's several of us there so we can count them.
Because they're on their way.
Yep.
You see them traveling.
Yep.
I get it. Okay.
But when you can't count them is when the broadwings come through. And that's about one of our watchers said, that's the 20th of September they're coming through. And then you look up and they're just kettles of them, and you have to more or less wait till you watch them peel out. They kind of go and soar around in a circle, and then they kind of peel out. And then we can count them from there.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Once you're hooked, you're hooked.
Are you getting younger people involved?
We have had more lately.
Good. Was it around this time you started getting into becoming a master gardener?
I haven't been in that too many years, but I like to consider myself a master gardener. And what I really got into with that was checking out the hemlock woolly adelgids.
Right.
And now I'm into the emerald ash borers. But that's what really got me going as a master gardener.
Oh, it's interesting. Okay, so for those in the audience who don't know about the woolly adelgids or the woolly, the emerald ash borers, they're both invasives.
Invasives.
That are coming into our area, and you have been keeping count of them as well?
Yeah, for the hemlock woolly adelgids, I think it's been about 6 years that we've gone out and done that. And of course, I would keep track of, the records from it, which I would turn into the Vermont Fish and Wildlife in Springfield. It was all volunteer, but it was fun.
Yeah, it was. It was sort of
fun.
like a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing, right? Trying to figure out where they were and how many were coming in.
Yeah.
You do have pretty extraordinary gardens at your own home.
Yes, I do.
Yes, and you're working them all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Actually, when I'm in my gardens, it's dawn to dark. I just love it out there.
Yeah. And you also get up real early in the morning, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm up by 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes even earlier than that.
Really?
But that means I go to bed real early too.
That's right. But you get up very early and take a walk. Right?
Yes, I do. I have my early morning walks, and I do this every morning, no matter what the weather is. And when it's good weather, by that I mean not icy underneath, I do go out in the dark. And for all this fall, I would time it so I'd come back through Allen Swamp. And just as the geese were taking off, and that was fantastic.
Oh, wow.
I spent a lot of hours at that swamp.
Yeah, and just standing there and
Just
watching
standing
them.
there and watching them.
Yeah. And the sun coming up.
Yeah.
That's a picture.
It is, oh yeah. And of course now with it icy underneath, I wait till it's light before I go out.
Yeah. Does that cramp your style?
Yes. It does. It does.
It's an honest answer. Another nature organization, the Rockingham Tree Commission.
And that's a town committee. And there again, what we've been concentrating on mostly is planting trees along the streets of Bellows Falls. And part of what involved with that was we would go up and down Atkinson Street, and look at the trees that are all through that street,
Yeah.
and decide which ones really should come down, which one needed trimming. Not that we ourselves would do it, but then we would take it to like the electric company or Fish and Wildlife and go with what they thought. But usually we had a pretty good idea of what trees we need trimming.
Yeah.
You have to kind of look at the tree and think, okay, trailer truck goes through here, it's going to rub the trailer truck, or it's grown to a point that the branches are on somebody's house. You got to take care of that. So all the while that we were checking that out, I also was checking the ash trees, because there's several ash trees right there on Atkinson Street. And for me, it's very difficult, and I think for a lot of people, to tell the difference between a Norway maple and an ash tree. So as we come to what I knew was an ash tree, I would pick somebody's brains and say, okay, how do you know this is an ash tree?
You know, as you're talking, and I know of your interest in all of these organizations and what's in the organizations, which is nature, right? Various forms of nature. And, you know, it's just, it really strikes me that you have relationships. You have relationships with flowers. You have relationships with the trees. You have relationships with the birds, the animals, the bobcat in your backyard. And you're really living a life in very deep relationship with nature.
I really am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's part of who you are.
It's part of who I am. Yes.
Right. Right. That's unusual in this time. And I know that you have very, very little patience for screens. I know that you have very little patience for screens. And if you don't like something a computer is doing, that computer has really no chance whatsoever.
That computer does not have a chance.
Has more than one landed behind your house? Off of the deck?
Just one.
Just one. Okay. Beware. Beware.
But there have been threats. That's for sure.
Oh, I'll bet. Herrick's Cove. Herrick's Cove is an endeavor, and it's something that you have done for 18 years. You've just retired from doing Herrick's Cove. Could you tell folks a little bit about what that entails?
Well, I started it myself, and I started it without, I was president at that time of Audubon, and I did not have the backup of my board. They said, no, we can't do it. And then one of the men on the board says, a woman can't do this anyway.
Oh my!
And once they picked me off the ceiling, I said, you can see what a woman can do. And that started it.
Good for you. That's great. Okay, so tell us what Herrick's Cove actually is. We know it's a place, so what goes on?
Okay. This festival, of course, right now it's in its 20th year. It is a great, great festival, and if you've never gone to it, go to it. We try to find all these different programs that we possibly can afford to, to bring, mostly for kids, but also adults. And Fish and Wildlife is also involved in that one. And we really worked on it just about all year long, because what I did, and I'm not sure if the ones that are doing it now are still doing the same thing, but what I would do is, after we had the program or the exhibit, whatever it was, I would thank whoever it was that did it, and I would say, can we depend on you for next year? So I would have people lined up way ahead of time.
That's the fancy footwork.
Behind
the scenes.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
But it's been very successful every year.
It's very successful. The hard part that I felt was where it is on I'll call it on the island, is we had built it up to a point that if it got much bigger, we couldn't handle it.
Right.
So that's a kind of one of those things. You kind of line up, okay, let's try not to get it much bigger, but let's keep it quality.
Yes, right. And in some ways that makes it self-limiting, which
Yeah.
is probably okay in terms of the scale that you can really handle. Okay, and so that's an annual event, and it's just a little bit north of us here, but it's certainly in part of our territory.
Yep.
So yes, and that happens every May.
Yeah, the first Sunday of May. We figured if we kept it the same day, first Sunday, people would just remember that, and we could use a lot of the same publicity and such.
even though Mays have changed a bit in terms of weather.
A little
They're
bit.
a little bit
yeah.
later.
Yeah, our last three have been rainy. Yeah, but people come just the same.
That's great. That's great to have that reputation
Yeah.
as well. Osher lifelong learning. Again, I know that lifelong learning is something that you do.
Yeah.
And so you got involved with them and help with the programs, is that right?
Yeah, what I do is I handle membership, and I'm the treasurer. And there's about
President, secretary, treasurer. Well, I'm seeing a theme here.
and what we do is maybe 7 of us that sit down a couple times a year, and we plan out the programs, and we try to have a little bit of everything. Say one of nature, one of art, one of history, that sort of thing. So we have different programs. And of course, we like to think that we do good ones. We try our best to get good ones.
And you do get an amazing array of people. And they're all local, right?
Yeah. They're quite local.
Yes.
What we do is it's broken down to a spring program and a fall program. And it's 9 programs in each session. And it costs $45 for one session, but anybody can come for $8 if they don't want to, be a member.
Yeah, and it's such a wide array of programs and people
Yeah.
coming on, and it's a wonderful thing. Another thing that you did was you founded the Friends of the Library for the Rockingham Library.
Yep, I did that
Yes.
too.
Were you president of that as well?
I was at one time, yeah. I have a thing about starting things. I
Yes.
think I go to various things and I sit there and I watch and I think, oh, I can do better than that. And then, of course, I open my mouth and then that takes care of that.
It keeps things rolling, right?
It does,
I
yeah.
mean, they're still viable after, what was that, probably at least 30 years ago?
That was a long stretch, yeah.
And it's a public library, and you
Yeah.
work there as well.
Yeah, I work there. Yeah, I'm still there.
You're still there. You have been, I think maybe you were drafted into this, I'm not quite sure, in doing a column for the Westminster Gazette, which is a lovely little paper that the town of Westminster puts out. And you're writing a column, a weekly column?
Yeah, well, no, it comes out once a month.
Monthly,
Yeah.
monthly column
Yeah.
about nature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way it started was I was supposed to do an article each week on master gardeners. Well, at that point, I didn't really want to do master gardeners. I wanted to do my own thing. As a naturalist, I had so many stories I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I would like to write an article each month. And so the people that ran the Gazette said, well, sure, that's great. So immediately I was on the board and the treasurer now.
Okay, so we got treasure too.
Got that too. So with each article, it's usually on birds, but not necessarily. The one I just barely finished, which will be in the February issue, is on eagles. And the way I write I'm not a writer, so I have no background in writing at all. So what I do is I will type up different things I want to say. Like with the eagle, I say, okay, it's got strong feet, the talons are like 2-inch talons, and they kill with their talons. They have, of course, the big beak, but that's not for killing, that's for shredding, that sort of food. And I wanted to talk about the DDT that almost wiped out the eagles. And so I get all these things written down, and then I just let it kind of cogitate. And if I'm not right up against a deadline, I'll let it just sit there, and then after a few days I'll say, oh, I know something else I want to put in there, and then I'll look at it again, and then I'll say, oh, I don't have that worded the way I want it, so I kind of change it a little bit. And then the one I just got through before this was on Canada geese, and I had it all set ready to go, and I thought, oh, I want to add the pilot, Sully, that
Yes.
dumped his plane.
I read this one, yes, yes.
Dumped his plane into the Hudson, and everybody survived. And I almost didn't get that in because I didn't think of it till the last minute.
Yes, that's right. That's a real organic way of writing, right? I mean, it makes sense instead of sitting down to do something in one shot.
You know, I can't do it at one shot.
Yeah.
I have to let it sit there and I have to think about it.
I would think it'd be much more enjoyable to do it that way as well.
Yeah.
Plus, you get to do more research, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what you really enjoy.
What I really enjoy, yeah.
I know that one of the things that you really love, Alma, is history and local history in particular. Your latest enthusiasm, which are the Westminster Theatre curtains.
Yeah, and the way I got into that, I went to a presentation at Main Street Arts, and it was Charles Henry, and it was about the curtains.
Right, and these are the backdrops, to the performances that were done by an itinerant painter, I believe, as I recall, who would go through New England.
Right.
And so there are many old opera houses in the state that have these curtains in their possession.
Yeah, so in reading through the paperwork from the program, it said that there was one in Westminster. And I'm sure I've seen it, but right now they're having renovations, so I couldn't go and look at it again. But I've been talking with the different ones in town who did work on it, you know, cleaning it up, because it's all been cleaned up.
Oh, great.
So it's quite a little process to clean these curtains.
Yes, they're huge.
They're huge.
And they're often in 3 or 4 different parts, too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the one in Westminster has Chariot, right, and Ben-Hur, and you don't quite connect that with Westminster, not quite. But there was a lady that wrote the book, and this was a fairly recent book on preserving all these curtains, mostly in Vermont. That's where there's a huge number of them in Vermont.
Yes.
Probably because the Vermonters save everything.
Spring too short to be saved and curtains too good to throw out.
That's
right?
about it.
Yeah, they are amazing things to see, though, and I think it's something that a lot of people in the state are not that familiar with.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Talking about history and talking about the history of the curtains or whatever it is that you're investigating in your research, you've talked to a lot of people who have a lot of stories, and I think that there's almost a certain poignancy in that, you know, in gathering these stories together.
Stories, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I originally thought that I would write an article for the Westminster Gazette on the curtains, but I'm not going to do it right at the minute. I'm going to wait till they finish the restoration and get the curtain back where people can see it, and then write the article.
And also anybody who might have memories of going to performances with the theater curtains up. It's fascinating.
Yeah, 'cause there's a lot of research. I'm just starting there.
It's all inside, though.
Yeah,
There's
true.
no way to get those outside.
Nope.
No. But, okay, I think that what we'll do is we'll wrap it up and we'll get you back outside today.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Alma.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. This was a little trip out into the wilderness with Alma Beals. Tune in again next week. We will be here.